Jess Rush asked, is Trump indicted yet? Of course, referring to the January 6th insurrection. In that, no, ma'am, I'm sorry to say. But I got great news because there are more indictments in the stolen documents case. Now, if you're not familiar with our fetching of late, one of the complaints was that whole server room incident wasn't reflected in the charges for Trump. Some of the others involved. That said, my assumption was that these people all flipped. Turns out, no. Or if they did flip, they didn't do it to Jack Smith's satisfaction because there are yet more charges now against somebody who appears to have helped cover up Trump's crimes. And by the way, this person did not act independently. So the stuff that's going to bury this guy is also going to bury Donald Trump.
Document that's just been released by the United States District Court, Southern District of Florida. It's entitled Superseding Indictment. The grand jury charges and lists all the charges. And it says this is a case involving the United States of America versus Donald J. Trump, Walt Nauta, and Carlos de Oliveira. So it's a significant development indeed, and there's a lot of information in this document. Andrew McCabe is still with us, the former deputy director of the FBI. What do you make of this latest allegation that the Trump team, that these three individuals specifically, tried to delete surveillance footage?
Real quick, just for background on Andrew McCabe, this fella worked, I believe, under Trump and got utterly screwed over by him. Let's find out. Andrew McCabe, retirement, Trump. Ex-FBI official Andrew McCabe fired by... Yeah, so this was the guy that was fired less than 2 days before he was set to retire and therefore would have been eligible for his full pension benefits. That's who Andrew McCabe is. So just enjoy that little piece of background when this guy gets to report on his former terrible, technically boss, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But anyway, when this guy gets to reflect on Trump's doom, there's an extra little soupçon of flavor there. I'm sure I'm misusing that word. I just heard it somewhere. There's a little dash of flavor there for you.
Wolf, it's a stunning development, and it does make sense with what we know of the special counsel's inquiries over the last couple of months. In addition to asking many witnesses in front of the grand jury questions about the servers and whether or not they may have been damaged in the draining of the pool, those sorts of things, we also know they served legal process on a technology company that's responsible for maintaining the server. So they've clearly been digging on this for a while. It's also...
Real quick. Hold up. I've heard a lot of talk of late about iconic images. One of the most iconic photographs taken of the America's time with Donald Trump, let's say, aside from the Epstein photograph, yada yada yada, that right there, that image of what appear to be America's most sensitive documents crammed into boxes, stacked up by the John. I mean, if you're looking for an analogy for what the Trump years were for America, there it is. That's about perfect. That should be the cover to, like, the next 10 books that are written about this corrupt friggin' guy. just the documents of America in the crapper.
responsible for maintaining the server. So they've clearly been digging on this for a while. It's also the charge that we're hearing about against the former president is particularly damning because as we've talked about the previous charges, we were all struck when the original indictment came out and it showed the president's direct involvement in things like reviewing boxes and looking at the materials that were in there, really kind of evidence that would undermine any sort of defense that he could possibly say at trial, saying, I didn't know that I had national defense information. Well, this charge alleges not just that he knew what was in the boxes, but he was actively involved in trying to destroy evidence. The surveillance tapes, knowing they'd been subpoenaed, that he may have been, it's an allegation at this point, actively involved in coercing others, asking others to destroy that evidence. That is the very heart of obstruction of justice. And
It certainly is. Man, oh man, it certainly is. Really important to note. Take Donald Trump out of the equation in your head every time you're wondering, how serious is this for Trump? You know, when one of his people gets charged with a thing, whether it be Giuliani or Eastman or these people who were nameless until they got in such big trouble that their names were read on the national news about it. You're wondering, how serious is this for Trump? Take Trump out of the equation and ask yourself if the crime still happens. What other days did this guy delete security footage or try to delete security footage? Maybe successfully, I don't know. What other days? None, I have to imagine, because why would you?
it's a very serious charge, and one that overall, in the overall context of all the problems he's facing, makes him look much more guilty.
Bottom line right now, Andrew, let me get your thought. The new charges being leveled not only against these two other individuals, but also the former president. The earlier case that was revealed, all of the other charges involving the Mar-a-Lago classified documents, concealment and all of that, those were very, very hard to begin with. This only makes it even more legally painful, potentially, for the former president, right?
That's absolutely right, because it opens up a whole new area of evidence and questioning and testimony that would come into a trial that shows him even more deeply involved in a scheme to destroy evidence and to deny, to withhold what the government had demanded of him through legal process. It's very, very serious.
Yeah, and Gloria Borger, this is a legal nightmare that's unfolding for the former president right now.
Well, let me just, echo what Andy McCabe is saying. First of all, and Evan was alluding to this earlier, I think the question has always been, who was the wizard behind the curtain directing things? Was it the former president of the United States telling people that this was what they had to do, that this is how they had to destroy evidence if it comes to that, obstruct justice, move boxes, et cetera, et cetera? How deeply involved, if at all, was the president himself in any kind of obstruction? And what...
Wait a minute. Let's just think this through for a second, though. Let's say those soldiers all got orders from a capo, so to speak. Do we not think that that middleman was told to get the thing done by Donald Trump? I mean, I've never really understood this line of questioning. Maybe the unspoken thing that I'm supposed to just know they secretly mean is that, of course, Donald Trump said to get it done, but it just can't be proven, so that's what they're asking. But to me, it sounds like a nonsensical question. Anyway, maybe I stopped too soon. Maybe she says, of course, it was Donald Trump. Because who the hell else would ask them to do this?
This alleges is that the president former president was deeply involved. He was,
Okay.
according to this, the wizard behind the curtain. The other thing that really strikes me, and I've learned this over the years from covering these cases, is that timing is really, really important. And what would have tipped off these prosecutors to saying, okay, we really need to kind of pay more attention to these phone calls is that because the call was placed shortly after prosecutors had issued their subpoena to Trump's company, the Trump Organization. So when you look at a timeline, you have to take a look at this and say, well, why would they move this footage if the subpoena hadn't demanded the surveillance tapes? And that is exactly why footage was probably moved. So I think...
Trying to remember that phrase. This mother effer spittin'. Yes. Yes, exactly. It's once again obstruction of justice. It's once again Trump showing absolutely no respect for the laws that you and I are supposed to follow. Boy, we better punish this. Looks like we are, though. I almost don't know what to do with myself, if I'm honest. Jack Smith should be Attorney General. I would take Jack Smith as Attorney General over Merrick Garland. Not yet. Not yet. I like what he's doing right now. No notes. I'm just saying for the future, after we put Merrick Garland on an iceberg and just sort of push that out to sea, what we should do is make Jack Smith the Attorney General. Or Dana Nessel. I'll take either. I'm just enjoying this.
As we look at this in a broad scheme, this answers, or tries to answer, or may answer, a lot of really important and damning questions about the former president's involvement in all of this and the moving of these Mar-a-Lago and trying to hide these Mar-a-Lago documents.
Very significant. Norm Eisen is with us as well. I'm reading this document, this superseding indictment that just came out with a lot of new information. One line that jumped out at me, I want to get your thought. Trump was not authorized to possess or retain those classified documents. He keeps insisting he was authorized as president of the United States, even though he removed those documents after he left office. He was authorized to retain those kinds of documents. What do you say?
Wolf, I worked on these issues when I was in government, and he absolutely was not authorized to handle them. We have statutes and regulations and executive orders that set up the system for handling this. We know he's admitted limitations on his power. Some of those conversations happened after he left the presidency, where he admitted, once I had the power, now I do not. So that is not going to avail him when it comes to defending his conduct. It's very important in looking now at Mr. De Oliveira, the third defendant in this case, to reflect that neither he nor Mr. Nauta had that power of...
Yeah. Nothing new to add there. Sorry about that awkward transition. We get it. Of course, Donald Trump did not have the authority to have those documents. That's why the government was able to insist they be returned. Third person in this, my only thoughts are that the guy either did flip initially and was found to be unsatisfactory. That could go any number of ways for us. Most of them good, believe it or not. I doubt very much the entirety of the case hinged on his testimony, if he was planning on giving it, because there is an obscene amount of evidence. I mean, we've had a pretty decent gander at what they've got. No one piece of it is crucial. And all of it is so damning. One thing that would be bad is if one of the charges pending on Trump was contingent on this guy. Like, one specific charge was contingent on this guy's story, and it was found out that he lied about that particular story, because it will come out eventually that was the course of the investigation, and that will be used as an excuse to dismiss the entire trial in the eyes of the public. But I'm playing devil's advocate, I guess, for the absolute worst case scenario. And regardless, all we really have to worry about is reality. Did the government behave appropriately? Are they charging people who appear to have been involved early on? I was saying that I don't like the idea of only going after the boss. I think Democrats understand people so poorly that in their minds, and I say Democrats because they were the ones complaining, largely, in their minds, if you go after too many Republicans, it'll be seen as political. We wouldn't want to be political, and so we're going to act based on politics. Whereas the view of a lot of other folks was that, no, if you act politically, it'll be seen as political. If you only go after Donald Trump, then it will be seen as a witch hunt. So I'm delighted to see that they are going after the guy who was involved with the destruction of evidence. I mean, you cannot thumb your nose at the U.S. government like that and not experience repercussions. Otherwise, why do any of us have to obey the law? Hell of a thing to say in a case involving Donald Trump. You don't have to do anything for this. One of the reasons I'm getting, I think, a little more comfortable playing court updates is that we should enjoy the things we've earned, and y'all earned this. When this channel started not too terribly long ago, there was questions still as to whether Trump would be ever charged for anything at all. And folks like you out there who took an interest in content talking about this guy getting charged, and who made phone calls and emails and generally made a hell of a lot of noise about this stuff, folks like you are why anything got done at all. At all. And as proof of that, I present to you the last, 4 Republican presidents we've had? All criminals, I think, except for Ford. Let's see. It doesn't matter. Now I got to do it. George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, Reagan, and Nixon. We simply let them get away with crimes. And I have no doubt that the U.S. government would have allowed Trump to get away with crimes, possibly by saying, hey, Mr. Biden, it doesn't look like there's a lot of noise being made about this. Can you spare us a lot of work and a lot of heartache, because a lot of our fellas just don't want to go after him, and pardon the man. And then Biden would have said, like, oh, I get to be the peacemaker. All right, fellas. So, good job. Be happy. Y'all earned it. I think Trump's actually going to see the inside of a prison cell.